And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I'd like to introduce Jenna Dower. She's the Share Executive Council President.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Sorry, I moved my computer and my internet went weird. So, hi guys. Welcome to the Share membership meeting. My name is Jenna Dower and I'm the director of the Smithton Public Library. I'm also the current Share Executive Council President. It's great to see so many faces here, and I thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us for our year in review. First, I want to say a huge thank you and a big kudos to both system and individual library staff for how well you've handled all of the changes in 2020. You have and are doing great work, so thank you for all you do and keep it up. I just kind of wanted to let you know about what the Executive Council has talked about this year. So I'll share a few topics with you now. So a share newsletter was emailed on August 12th of this year that just talked about how we recommend as a council that libraries work together for billing. With the pandemic, it's caused many challenging situations for everyone, and circumstances may look different in every community. While the Share Executive Council recognizes that members may need to bill other libraries for lost items, they also encourage members to work together. We recommend that if a borrowing library with extenuating circumstances receives a bill for lost items, the librarian should contact the owning library to discuss special arrangements. And it's noted that patrons will still be billed as normal, and any payments received should still be sent to the owning library. The second thing I wanted to bring up is we talked about changing the medium and large library size definitions. So the challenge that the Executive Council faces is the structure for public libraries is currently, it was at medium was defined as 10,001 to 50,000 for a population, and large was 50,000 and one or more. So we voted to change the definition to the medium to 10,001 to 25,000, and then the large would be 25,001 or more. So that will allow leadership to happen with the larger public libraries. It will allow more people to be able to be a part of committees and things like that. The third and last thing that I wanted to talk about today is the discussion of a phone application that could be on the horizon for us. We're working together with various committees to choose an application that would unite each library's resources for our patrons. We are researching ways that can bring the library along with patrons when they're exploring our communities, such as ISBN scanners and finding the nearest library location with the phone's location features. We're researching apps that integrate e-resources such as the cloud library so patrons can have instant awareness and access to our joint digital collection. And I just wanted to add a personal note for the positivity that I think an app would bring to our libraries. So I personally feel that libraries, no matter the size, should be the cornerstone of every community. In today's technology-heavy world, more people are on their phones and tablets than ever before. By partnering with an application software developer that specializes in libraries, Share and IHLS are able to offer member libraries access to a professional interface that showcases what libraries offer to communities. And please know that the discussions we have had and will continue to have are in pursuit of the absolute best application company and product that fits the needs of IHLS. And we are the largest library consortium in North America. So I would now like to turn it over to Cassandra Thompson for the Share report, please.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And let's see. So on reflection of this year, there's just a huge sense of before and after. In February, some of our staff had just returned from PLA. We had just settled back into the office. And, we had come back with all these great ideas, really innovative products that we were excited about. And then we started hearing this real concern about this pandemic. Looking back, I think that we didn't want to overreact. And then we just didn't want to panic. And so, as you were all preparing crisis plans and shutting down, Share staff went to work. We transitioned to remote work. Our staff picked up their office and they put it back down on their dining rooms and coffee tables, and we made it work. And so we went to work to help to support you, our members, and your patrons. So Share has a lot of things to be really proud of this year. When we think about before, we had just implemented some changes to help ensure our financial stability for the future. We had made some policy changes to improve our governance, and you'll see that in our vote where cataloging libraries will vote on changes to cataloging standards, where all members will vote on things that affects everyone. We are investing time and energy into learning more about those innovative products, including a mobile app. And so we want to make sure that we're meeting patrons where they are, as more and more that means patrons are on their mobile devices. And so then there was the after. We switched gears. So some important projects got put on hold. And as I said before, we never imagined that we'd disable our system the way that we had to in the early days of the crisis. And so I will admit it was not perfect. We made some mistakes. We had a learning curve, but I always want to find the silver lining. So we've learned and we've grown. Our phenomenal IT department, I'm going to call out Brant Wingeter. I never say that right, Brant. I'm so sorry. But he created some tools to utilize our system the way that we need it today. And these tools have made things so much easier for our Share staff, and that we're going to carry that with us. Our catalogers and training staff rose to the challenge and developed trainings exclusively online. That's already one area that we had some experience, but going fully virtual was an impressive feat. Again, these are areas that have only improved our programs and that we're going to take with us. I'd also like to use this opportunity to thank all of our Share committee volunteers. This program runs as well as it does because of their time and talent. Again, we were trying to put together plans A, B, and C, and then we realized that we need to start planning B, C, or D, E, and F. And so there they were. They were attending emergency meetings. They were helping voice concerns. They were making some excellent suggestions, and they were investing in this community. So to all of the Share committee volunteers, thank you for all that you do. I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank our members. It has been a privilege to watch you come together, to share resources, to support each other, and to go to work for your communities. I know that you have all dealt with a lot of fear and confusion and anger, but you all still stepped up, you showed up, and you got to work too, and your communities are so lucky to have you. So beyond the before and after, this is also an opportunity for me just to share the state of our consortium. We have 344 member agencies at 478 locations, and we still are the largest automation consortium in North America. We've also added 4 new transitional members, and we have 21 staff members, including 5 CMC catalogers. Our consortium shares almost 10 million items, and our circulation numbers are down this year, which is to be expected due to this disruption, but we're already starting to see members starting to see them pre-COVID levels. Our digital consortium, Cloud Library, also saw enormous growth. And give me just a second here. So you can see here, this is the Cloud Library circulation by month up through the end of our fiscal year. And so you can see it was pretty standard. We started to see a little bit of a bump in March. So this is the blue line represents fiscal year 18, orange is fiscal year 19, and then fiscal year 2020. So you start to see a little bump in March, a bigger jump in April, May, and then a huge jump each of those months as we started getting additional circulations, additional patrons joining in on our Cloud Library. We have now 244 participants in the cloud library, and that was 39 additional new members since the start of this. We also just recently received a grant of $125,000 to purchase additional ebooks, thanks to the Secretary of State Jesse White, the Illinois State Library, via funding from the CARES Act. And it's been dispersed by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is an extension of the Library Services and Technology Act. We had 2 carts built, and we were ready to hit the button on 12/1 when we got permission to spend. And I'm happy to say that we have just spent over $50,000. We added 1,009 juvenile titles and 725 young adult titles in order to get support to our students and young patrons quickly. We're also going to utilize the wealth of our expertise of our library selectors. And so 6 of our members have agreed to help expand our offerings. And that includes Beth Bindley, O'Fallon Schools, Emily Pickle, Champaign Central High School, Rachel Bealby, Sacred Heart Griffin High School, Saren Connor at Carbondale Elementary School, Hope Caston, Salem Community High School, and Erica Hankey Young at 6 Mile Regional Library District. And so it's going to be a great project, and we know that more hands make lighter work, but it creates a greater breadth and depth to our collection, and so utilizing the talent that we have among us. And so I hope to see those names frequently as we look for additional volunteers for our committees and to participate in this community. We've also had some staff changes to share, including some new faces. So Dina Porter started as our new Share Administrative Services Supervisor. She started on March 16th. And as you all remember, that was COVID Crisis Monday. So she waded in, she got to work, and we're lucky to have her. And so you'll hear a little bit more from her soon. We also hired a CMC cataloger, Heidi Margold. She also started with us fully remote. So she's really been our guinea pig on how to onboard a new employee remotely. We've just learned some of the lessons and we've grown. I also want to note that Sue Pearson has changed hats. So she was our circulation specialist, but she's now moved over to cataloging. So I'm sure you'll still be seeing her smiling face since she's taking on that new challenge. So if you have circulation questions, you can reach out to our other circulation specialist, Zach Henderson, or submit a help desk ticket. And we're still hiring, so you may see some new faces in the future. So we're still learning, we're still growing, and we're still improving. So I've introduced some new faces to the Share staff, but I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredibly hard work of all of our other Share staff. They are a shining example of grace under pressure. Their knowledge, their expertise, and dedication is only secondary to their commitment to our members. They are our program's biggest strength, and they're our largest source of pride. And so I want to say thank you to all of our Share staff. I've said it from day one that it has been just such a pleasure to work with such a great group of professionals. I know that this has been an incredibly difficult year, so thank you all for stepping up and making it work, and thank you for all that you do. Share also relies on all the expertise of the other IHLS staff, including delivery, membership, IT, finance, HR, and marketing communications. We all just work a lot better because we have their support. And so thank you so much for joining us today. With that, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to Shelley Stone. She is the Share Manager of Bibliographic Services to continue the Share report.
Hi. So as Share Manager for Bibliographic Services, I oversee all of the Share catalogers and the Cataloging Maintenance Center. But my job is made so much easier because we have 2 wonderful supervisors, and they are both really great at their jobs. Edie Elliott is the Share Cataloging Supervisor. She presents the monthly catalogers training sessions along with me and helps me to plan them each month. We had a total of 943 participants at those training sessions this year. Edie also keeps me organized, which is no small task. She conducts a weekly meeting with all of the Share catalogers to keep everyone in contact and discuss what they're working on each week. These are great little meetings because everyone starts with something positive, something that they're happy about or something they feel good about, which we all pretty much need to focus on right now. The Share catalogers work on all the incoming materials in any format. the share libraries send in or request $3 bib records for, which is an average of 250 requests a month for those $3 bibs. Cassandra, can you share my slide, please? So on the slide, you can see all of the cataloging numbers for fiscal year 2020. Share catalogers cataloged 9,644 items last fiscal year. This is really interesting because we didn't have delivery for a couple of months during April and May, so you can see that the cataloging numbers decreased significantly during that time period. So we adjusted things a bit for that time period so that member libraries could send in scans of the information that we needed to catalog the items. But then when the delivery started back up again, we discontinued that option. The share catalogers, who Dina will mention later in her presentation, of all the share staff, are all super talented, detail-oriented, hardworking people, and we're very fortunate to have them. I feel confident in saying we have some of the best catalogers anywhere. Edie has also started teaching the required barcoding 1 class as a webinar, since we aren't doing any in-person classes right now. And just last week, we started teaching the required cataloging classes online because we had many people waiting to become catalogers. Edie is moderating those sessions and I'm presenting them. And actually those classes are full right now. So the whole series will start again beginning in March. And we're doing 1 more class this month, 2 in January, and the final 1 in February to get those catalogers started. So I said there were 2 great supervisors. Pamela Thomas is the Bibliographic Project Coordinator for the Cataloging Maintenance Center, and she supervises all of the CMC catalogers. She writes the grant reports, creates the budget along with our finance department, creates training sessions online, including the RDA book cataloging, RDA audio and video, subject analysis, and those are all in-depth classes that each last for several weeks. Pam and the CMC catalogers also present online with the CMC training sessions several times a year. In fiscal year 2020, there were 514 participants for those sessions. As many of you know, the Cataloging Maintenance Center catalogs special collections for any library in Illinois, and this is funded, by a grant from the Illinois State Library. Not only do they do cataloging, but they do database cleanup projects. They create name authority records and special projects like transcribing oral histories, adding Library of Congress call numbers to a collection. I think they even did a big project of cataloging music. And those are just a few of the projects that they have been working on. The CMC also gives presentations anywhere in Illinois and have recently taken part in an ILA panel discussion presented at Reaching Forward and Reaching Forward South, plus a couple of presentations for SWAN and Prairie Cat, which are both automated library consortia in northern Illinois. We have a great group of CMC catalogers who are always busy with many different projects. Since Pam has been the coordinator for the CMC, they have gained recognition all over the state as a viable source for cataloging, training, and database cleanup, as well as other projects. Pam is never afraid to take on more work. I'm really proud of what the CMC has become and how it has grown over the years, even though I really didn't have anything to do with it. All of the credit goes to Pam and the CMC catalogers. And Dina will show us who all of those people are in a few minutes. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we do have several new transitional members who are barcoding their collections now. So welcome the Potomac Public Library, Meridian Junior and Senior High School in Mounds, Gillespie Junior Senior High School, and Ben Gill Elementary School in Gillespie, and Marissa Junior Senior High School. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Okay, I think we are going to go ahead and now send it over to Dina Porter.
Hello, I hope everyone can see my screen. I just wanted to mention again that SHARE is a collection of libraries in Central and Southern Illinois that together form the largest automation consortium in the country. We've heard this several times already today, but I think it's a very impressive feat. I'm just going to quickly introduce to you the SHARE staff members so you can put a face to the voice that you always talk to on the phone or who you correspond with in that email. First up, I'd like to introduce the SHARE Staff Services team. We have Cassandra Thompson, the SHARE Director, Leslie Zavaduke, and Zach Henderson. They are both our SHARE Circulation and Resource Sharing Specialists. The SHARE Staff Services team do a wide variety of things from pursuing grants to benefit the local library system automation project, assisting in organizing and providing continuing education activities for member library staff, as well as assisting with providing for member libraries' needs, services, and evaluations. Next up, we have the SHARE Administrative Services team. This team takes on a whole host of duties, including complete profiling for potential new SHARE members, monitor the administration module in Polaris, and probably the most predominant one that we take care of is Polaris troubleshooting. The administrative services team consists of myself, Dina Porter. I am the SHARE Administrative Services Supervisor. Kim Sparks is our Administrative Services Specialist. Terry Moreland, the Reporting Services Specialist. And Mary Johnston, she is our Tech Support Specialist. Now the big one, the SHARE Bibliographic Services team. They're responsible for maintaining this pristine bibliographic database that we all have known to come to love. They do consist of many members. You'll notice on several of the staff members there's an asterisk by their name, and that indicates that they are part of the CMC, which is the Cataloging Maintenance Center. First up, we have Shelley Stone. She's the SHARE Manager for Bibliographic Services. Edie Elliott is our Cataloging Supervisor. Dr. Pamela Thomas is the Bibliographic Project Coordinator. Catalogers include Sherry Schuler-Faust, Ian Anderson, Don Pippin, Liz Perkins, Robert Brady, Sue Pearson, Steve Johnson, as well as Aaron Rose and Heidi Margold. Next up, we have our IT staff. While most of the members of the IT staff do not necessarily fall under the SHARE umbrella, this department makes our lives so much easier. With help from Troy, our IT director, Brandon, the network administrator, Brant, our web developer, and John, who is our web and IT administrator, they make our lives so much simpler, and I cannot imagine doing this job without them. Communication. As you know, in this time that we live in, communication is so very important. If you visit share.illinoisheartland.org, under the Connect tab, you will see listservs. We ask that you and all library staff members sign up for our newsletter and any applicable listservs that can benefit them. And LEAP, we can't go without a presentation from me without mentioning LEAP. If you go to leap.illinoisheartland.org, you sign in with your full Polaris username. Be sure after your last name to add @share.ihls.lcl to your username. I've said this many times before that LEAP is the wave of the future at Polaris. We suggest that you and your staff just get familiar with LEAP, to just get in there and see what options LEAP currently has to offer. Each update offers more and more items to LEAP. Innovative is predicting that in the fourth quarter of 2021, so just in a year from now, LEAP will be fully integrated with everything that the staff client has. Also like to remind everyone about our training portal. If you go to the Share website, toward the top right-hand corner, you'll see a link for our training site. You just simply log in with your Polaris username and password, then click on Site Home, which is over toward the left, to view the available instructional courses. And the courses include everything from basic circulation to the 10 Commandments of circulation. There are LEAP tutorials, and the recorded catalogers training sessions are also housed there. Have you visited the newly reformatted L2 site? If you go to librarylearning.org, you can view and sign up for things that IHLS and SHARE is offering. This is another thing that all staff members at your library should be aware of, and they should have a log-on for it. One last thing I would like to mention is a common loan focus group. We are just in the process of getting this started, and sorry, library directors, we're going to leave you out of this one. We are asking for anyone that is a circulation manager, circulation staff member, really anyone who's just out there working those front lines to be a member of this group. The group will meet periodically to discuss and eventually make an official recommendation on common loan periods. If there are any staff members that is interested in this, please have them reach out to me. They can reach me at my email address, which is dporter@illinoisheartland.org. And I'm at 618-985-3711, extension 626, if they want to give me a call. So that brings an end to my very quick presentation. Again, please don't hesitate to out to any one of us here at SHARE if you have any questions on anything that is going on with SHARE or Polaris. Thank you. And Cassandra, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dina.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to mention, if anybody has any questions, now would be a great time to either speak up or type in the chat for either Shelley, Dina, or myself. We've talked a lot about common loan periods. I do want to just clarify that we are not going to be mandating common loan periods, but we are going to start trying to make some recommendations for best practices. So I do want to clarify that before we get some questions about that. And so I see, could you please post the request to the circulation committee to the share listserv? We will be posting that to our newsletter as we build that group. We are working on that as well. Does anybody else have any questions before we move into the final portion of our share report? Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Troy Brown. He is technically IHLS IT director, but he is our share futurist. So he's going to tell us a little bit more about where we are going.
Awesome. Share futurist. I like that title a lot. Well, before we look at the future, I kind of want to just take I don't know, 8-year look back here real quick, maybe 9 or 10. I was thinking as I was what I was going to say today, and I was thinking back to when we all met at Effingham, and we were really, in some ways, 4 different groups. Still, even though we had merged as IHLS by this time, but we were all coming at this with 4 different ways of looking at the library ILS world. And so I just want to congratulate all of you that were there, and maybe tell a quick story to those of you who weren't, that it wasn't easy days. We disagreed about a lot, but the one thing we all agreed on was that sharing more information and more resources with more people was, in the end, the better solution for our libraries and for our patrons. And that process and that decision that came out of that, and ultimately the decision to go with Polaris, has been a very good one. And knowing what we know now, 8 years later, it was absolutely the best decision. We don't always get to say that. A lot of times we look at our decisions and it's like, oh, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have known that. But for us and our circumstances and the way we want to do business, and by business, I mean sharing our resources, we absolutely picked the best product. And I want to congratulate anyone who was there during that time, that we nailed it. And what I'm going to talk about today about the future that Polaris and Innovative have laid out, this isn't going away. We still have a great product, and we're still on the best product in the market, and they're still selling new copies of Polaris. With all the new stuff that's come out since, there are still people that are new into library automation that are buying Polaris as their product today. So there's nothing dead about it. We are doing great. And during this time, we've been giving shout outs to each other, but Cassandra and her team, the admin team, Dina and Kim and everybody really, but you probably don't realize how many calls that they've gotten and saying, we're closing at this time, we're going to be closed for these days, and we're going to be, we're just doing curbside, or we're closing completely. Every single one of those takes numerous changes to Polaris. And yes, Brant created a great script to help automate some of that, but these guys are making these changes every day, multiple times a day, and they're doing a stupendous job. So it takes a village, and just huge shout out to everybody. And I'm not on the behind the desk at your libraries, and I just give a kudos to everything you guys have had to do to be flexible through this. So enough of that, enough of the pep talk. A little bit of history, well, not history, recent history. You may or may not have heard that ProQuest acquired Innovative, who at one time acquired Polaris several years ago. So now Polaris, the product, actually falls under the ProQuest name. ProQuest has said that they are going to keep the Innovative brand for 2 years at least, but that's kind of where they're at right now. So all the logos and everything don't have to change to ProQuest yet, but you may see that. You'll see Innovative, a ProQuest company. So ProQuest has other products out there, especially in the academic world. They have a really great product. I won't go into all those, but they're expanding who they are now with more of a the public library and the Polaris framework to go with that. They are committed to the products that are already in network, Polaris and Leap being one of those. They are committed to expanding Leap development and making Leap the kind of platform going forward for new features and new development. They are maintaining the support of the staff client that you use with all the colored marbles, or that's still going to work, but that's where only a few new features are going to come to that. That's really, the bugs will be fixed in that, but new features, new innovation, and new ways of doing things, that's all going into the Leap platform. So as Dina said, we want you to try out Leap. It's not just about it catching up to what the staff client can do anymore. I think it's there. I don't think there's anything that you're doing in circulation that it cannot do. There may be a different way to do it, but it can do everything you need it to do on the circulation side. So if you have a circ desk set up and that's all it does is circ desk, I highly, highly encourage you to try out Leap. Maybe just for a day, 1 day a week. Just pick Tuesdays as Leap Day, or something like that. Maybe one of your slower days, just so you can get to know it. But just dive in there and watch those training videos on the training website. You'll learn something, I guarantee it. You may also hear from ProQuest that they're developing a new program called Inspire. That is kind of their next generation. Believe it or not, it's built a lot on Leap, and it's built a lot on Polaris. So they're giving it a new name, but they're borrowing a lot of what we're already using. That will be a new platform, but it's still, don't worry, it's still at least 2 years out from really being fully ready for the market. And I would say it's at least 3 to 4 years out before it's ready for a consortium of our size. So, but you may hear those words, you may hear the Inspire platform, and I want you to know that we're watching it, and it's a good thing. And also, just to show you their commitment, Polaris and Leap they're adding more international country support to it. So this isn't a platform that's going away. All right. I've been bouncing around in my notes. Also, one of the I don't want to say downsides, but one of the things that Leap does not have built in, or Polaris doesn't have built in, is that mobile app. I don't know if any of you are like me. When I get on my phone and I want to go to, say, Lowe's website, or I want to go to Walmart's website or something like that, I don't open a browser and I don't type in their web address to go to those. I have their app on my phone. I go to the Lowe's app. I go to the Walmart app. There's an expectation from me, and I'm an old guy now, that when I open my phone, I go to an app to get to what I want and not to a website. I think the younger you get, and I can speak for my daughters, who one's in college and one in high school, they don't browse the web on their phone. They don't want to type an address. So I think the expectation from our patrons more and more is that in order to search the library resources, they want an app. So I just highly encourage those who are in a decision-making process for that, or the things that are being evaluated right now for a dedicated library app. I highly encourage you to go that direction. The two that we've looked at are both can absolutely do the job, and it really comes down to which one's a better fit for us and where the pricing lands, which is still a big question. So I just want to give a big plug to that app development, and just keep up the good work. So that's really all I have. I also want to remind you on Leap that Leap, there's a little bit of a misconception we've gotten from the questions about Leap, is does it have to run on a tablet like an iPad or something like that? Leap just runs within your web browser. So any device that can run a web browser. So your desktop computer can absolutely run Leap. A Mac, a PC, a tablet can absolutely run Leap. They say it's not supported on phones, although it works quite honestly perfectly well on most of the phones we've tried it on. It's not officially supported, but if you brought up your phone and you went to leap.illinoisheartland.org, you could log on. We also have a few people that are plugging USB scanners, barcode scanners, into their tablets, either using a USB port or using a wireless Bluetooth scanner. Again, it just works like a keyboard, and you have to put your little cursor in the right field, but you can scan books in the shelves, do bulk check-ins, book drops, or you can, walk through the community park, 6 foot distance, of course, and check people out using a wireless barcode scanner using a tablet. So pretty neat stuff. We're excited about where that's going. So I've said enough. I saw a question come through here. I wasn't watching. Could you please post? Oh, okay. When they say they're going to have most of the functions in Staff Plan at Leap by the end of next year, does that include cataloging and acquisitions? Absolutely, yes. And not just that, but also system administration, which was they honestly said they probably weren't going to do that at one point, but now they've committed to doing that. So absolutely everything is what they're told us by the end of next year. And Troy, would it be difficult to give patron access to only select database given the way database authentication? I think that's going to be a case-by-case basis with depending on the databases you talk about. As you may or may not know, we do support SIP2 authentication. So platforms like Hoopla and Ancestry.com, and there's a lot of others. But if they support SIP2 authentication, then we can do a remote authentication. A lot of people aren't using SIP2 yet. There is a little bit of an extra fee from Share for SIP2, but once you have it, you can use it on as many platforms as you want. So a lot of people are doing Hoopla right now for their patrons for e-content, And so we've gotten a lot of requests, which is awesome. I love e-content. So that's about it. So thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you so much, Troy. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to either put in the chat or speak up? Okay, then I think we will go ahead and turn it over to Ellen for the IHLS system report.
Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see all of you. And please excuse my cracky voice. I'm going to report on things that are coming up and then tell you happily that we're looking at a couple weeks ahead of us that are a little quieter than normal, which is a very nice thing. And then we dive straight ahead into 2021, which we all realize will be way better than 2020 was for us. So what we're looking at this week, that's the last big thing really before the end of the year, is the Members Matter meeting on Friday. And that's being held at the request of Greg McCormick from the State Library, who said that he would like to have some time with our members to discuss two specific topics. One being the per capita grant for the upcoming year for our public libraries, and the other to discuss proposed changes in the administrative code. So that will happen this Friday at 10 o'clock until 11:30. The changes in the administrative code center around three topics. One is non-resident services to veterans, one is e-resources for non-residents, and one is the Cards for Kids legislation that was passed earlier this year. These have all been published in the Illinois State Register. It was published November 30th. It's like a 200-page document. So I was able to take the pages out that were relevant to our public libraries, scan them, and I've posted them on the L2 description for Friday's event. So if you want to take a look, that's where you can look at them. Currently, we have about 115 people registered. The per capita grant that public libraries are used to having due on January 15th will not be due this year until March 15th. And Greg will talk more about that on Friday, as well as talking more about the certification that you've all done annually for a number of years to certify that your libraries are compliant with the membership standards. This won't open up this year until mid-February, and it will be done through L2. So when Dina asked you to familiarize yourself with L2, this is a good time to do it. The other thing to bear in mind is we're learning too. So whenever you have a problem with L2, don't hesitate to fill in a help desk ticket. We'll do our very best to help you, and we'll learn through this together. And the final thing I wanted to talk about today is I'm privileged to sit on the ILA Public Policy Committee group. And that committee every year picks legislative initiatives that they want to bring to the state legislature. And this year it's a little harder than normal because people aren't meeting and access is being closely guarded. So our lobbyist can't get to places he used to be able to do, those kinds of things. So what ILA has determined that they will do this year, and I think it's a very smart move, is to spend their capital on promoting libraries within the state, promoting what libraries do in their communities and what difference those libraries and those services have made during this pandemic. So the typical legislative meetups that are held in January throughout the state will be held virtually this year. And we'll be reaching out to a number of you to ask you to share stories about the impact your library has had in the community. So stay tuned, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. Jill.
Ellen, it says, do we have access to the FOIA OMA hotline that Rails uses for their membership? Sometimes they give us access to their membership and third-party sources.
Jill, you know what? I will look into that for you and have an answer for you by the time we meet together on Friday. My gut feeling would be to tell you that we do, because I've never heard that access was taken away from our libraries, but I will check. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you so much, Ellen. I think that we are going to go ahead and finish up the IHLS report with Susan Palmer. And so Susan.
Great. Thank you, Cassie. Well, I've got, we did run a report, and borrowing the numbers that you guys are doing, and we're looking at only incoming items, and we compared them to last year at the same time, and your numbers are going up. I think that's positive. I think as people get further into this pandemic, everybody has a different comfort level. I can see those numbers going up. We felt that way because we were seeing more items in delivery, but oftentimes you're like, is it true that the numbers are going up, or am I just having a hard day? So that's a positive thing. Also, I wanted to share with this group first is that the delivery working group, we met on Monday, and that's comprised of 10-member libraries and then various IHLS staff. We have Ellen on there, Anna on there, Cassandra on there, our delivery managers, coordinators, and they're kind of our advisory group. When the pandemic started, I realized that I have not worked in a library, and I don't know oftentimes the impact that decisions we make at the system level for delivery, how that impacts the flow, how it impacts the processes that the libraries have. So that's why we look to get people. And I'm really grateful. We sent out like 20 invitations to people. We tried to pick people who hadn't, who aren't the usual participants as such, and when we went through and got academics, and I don't think we got a special, but we got the schools and the public libraries represented. So we had kind of a round as I could get at that time, because we were all dealing with, holy cow, the things have shut down. So the thing is that we met, we did go through the science of things. I had reached out to the Oregon State Library and got a response. And the reason I reached out to the Oregon State Library is that they had reached out to their Department of Public Health and asked for a recommendation on the quarantining of items. How long the virus in the surface and how long should we quarantine? And their health department came back with a response that it would be, they felt 24 hours was good. So that being said, when that came out, I thought, I'm going to reach out to them after a few months of that being in motion and that being what they had recommended. Oregon, they shared with me that while they recommended, they shared that recommendation with their members. A lot of their members chose to go to just 72 hours. They were not comfortable with that 24-hour time of quarantine. I found that kind of interesting. So our delivery working group, as we looked at things and read, we will have up on the COVID site all the links to the items that we looked at. A lot of it still remained the same. It's been the same since probably September with some of those things. And we made the decision to drop from 5 days to 3 days. The 3-day quarantine, we're going to begin that process Monday. Our delivery staff should be finding that out today if they got back, and tomorrow before they go out. So that's the IHLS delivery quarantine time. So if you are in where you're doing your own quarantine and then you put the items out for the drivers to pick up, 3 days instead of the 5. And for the ones that we are bringing them in, we'll still bring them in-house and we'll do that process. Just for reference, when we went from 7 to 5, it took us almost 3 weeks to get caught up to where you were probably seeing that quicker turnaround. So I would anticipate it'll probably be about that same time period as we have the staff going through these and doing as much as they can each day. I think, I think that's about all I have. If you have any, and I kept it short. If anybody has any questions, of course. Oh, Jill Pfeiffer, sorry. Can you clarify what resets the quarantine clock? Yes, I can, because you had brought that up before several times, and we went ahead and we addressed that in the meeting. We're going to continue with the clock, the touch. If it's touched, that clock's reset for us, okay? We're not able to individually get down to that kind of scope where we would know each library, what they're doing, if they have touched it, have they touched it with gloved hands, have they touched it and washed their hands, have they washed their hands before? We're not able to get down to that granular of a level right now. We have so many of you. We have over 300 that we actively deliver to every week. So we're going to stick with that. That covers everybody. 3 days quarantine is the time that we're looking at. So when we pick up those tubs from you with the dates on them, we go from that 3 days there.
So she says, so technically it's 6 days if she holds them for 3. And so then they would wait another 3 to be sorted.
No, technically that's not it. I probably haven't explained this well. I'm sorry, Jill. So in your library, you receive our items from IHLS, and that's your quarantine period. Whatever you want to do with those tubs, that's up to each library and their community. You guys know what you need to do for your staff and your community. These are just the items that are coming out of your library to go somewhere else. So those interlibrary loans, that's what I'm talking about. The interlibrary loans, you put them into the tub, boom, put them out. We do 3 days from after we pick that tub up. Does that make sense? Does that help? Does that help? Did that explain it better? Sorry.
And she says, hold on. So it sounds like maybe there's another question. So we will give her just a moment. Or Jill, if you would like to just speak as well, rather than typing, that might be easier for you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to understand. So when a patron returns an item to my library, let's say it came from Belleville, we wait 3 days and then we check it in. And then from that 3 days, we check it in. It says it goes in transit to Belleville. So then we put it in a tub. Then it waits another 3 days before it can actually be sorted. That's where I'm coming up with the 6 days. That's what I'm referencing. And if that's not correct, I want to understand.
Yeah, so Jill, that does sound right. So if you choose to quarantine your items for 3 days before you prepare them for delivery, then yes, it would be a 6 day for you.
Jill, this is Scott Dren Silvers. I think that basically, if you want to turn out your things the very next day, IHLS is going to hold them for 3 days regardless. You can decide at your library how long you want to quarantine materials coming in and going out. IHLS will take anything it receives in the delivery process and quarantine it for 3 days. So basically think of it as 3 days plus whatever the local library decides to add to that process. Did I get it right, Susan?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yay.
You said so clear. I don't know why I bumble things sometimes. But you're right. Because each we're doing this for our staff. We're doing this for our own staff, that the sorters who sort these items touch all these items from all over. You guys do a great job of sharing items. But the reality is that we still have to have a manual process in our hubs at this time. And they are doing, what your library is doing too, is, the mask, the temperature, the washing, the not touching the face. And this is our process that we want them to be aware, as well as feel that we care about them, which we do, that we have quarantined those items. So it's safe for them to go ahead and do those things. We are also distancing ourselves at that 6 feet, as well as we have additional shifts or options so that we can't get too many people in to do the sorting. So we even are sorting on Saturdays. We have a couple people coming in, just trying to continually to get those things turned around. No, we have not turned into a 24-hour operation. I think I'd have a mass exodus. So that's some of the things that we're doing. So for your staff, whatever your days are, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, the items that are coming out of the libraries and coming into IHLS, we're going to quarantine the same all the way across.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Then
Scott.
Jenna, and Susan, you sent me a slide and I'm so sorry. If you had any comments about, I'm so sorry, I
It's
forgot
no
about
worries
it.
because I couldn't have done it anyway. So
Okay, so here's just some interesting information for you all of the comparative stats from fiscal 2020 to fiscal 2021. Okay.
And the other thing is taken from the Realm study where it had the items. And that was something else that the delivery working group, the DWG, looked at that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Susan. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jenna. And so Jenna is going to start introducing some of our share committee members so they can give their report. And so Jenna, I'll go ahead and turn that over to you.
Hi, everybody again. I just would like to bump up Esther. She has to leave. So, Jacob, I'm sorry, you're not next. So the Circulation Resource Sharing Committee report is going to be presented by Esther Curry, and she's from the CE BRIM MPLD, and she's the chair of that committee. So, Esther, I'll turn it over to you.
I am here. Let me get my video on. Oh, I can't turn it on. Somebody. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start. And there we go. So you can all see my lovely face. I have to go pick my daughter up before the daycare closes at 4. So thank you for letting me bump up a little bit. Circulation has been busy, but we actually are not going to have anything to vote on this time. I think that's probably a first. Most of our focus has, of course, obviously been COVID. We've had a lot of those discussions about the quarantining, and we're able to take that information and give it to the delivery working group. So some things that we have been focusing on policy-wise is working on getting some kind of boilerplate language to help libraries do up intergovernmental agreements with different library types. Again, focusing on some of that e-resource only, which they're going to be talking about more at the Members Matter meeting. One thing that we had talked about a little bit was Polaris has an automatic renewal process. We've kind of put that aside for a while. There's just, with being a consortium with so many different libraries, loan periods, rules, that automatic renewal for a one big library with lots of branches is a great resource. But there are so many confusing factors. We just figured it right now, it would be it would be a nightmare for patrons understanding why their stuff's not renewing. So that was kind of moved to a back burner for a while. And we're also looking at, I think Decatur Public Library in the past year has added stack maps, which is kind of an add-on third party that works through Polaris that they're trying out, and it helps patrons can click on a map to their library's holdings and can then go find their materials. I think some other libraries may be looking into adding in that. So if you have questions on that. Cassandra, should they get a hold of you or?
Yeah.
Okay. It looks like a really nice feature. It's there's set, background setup and things like that, but Decatur seems to be really happy with it. And again, we've been looking at options for a mobile app, and now with possibility of Polaris / ProQuest developing a mobile app type platform, we're kind of seeing where that's going to go. So a lot of things that we start and go, well, we got to wait a little bit. I think probably the biggest thing, and I guess technically would be voted on, we've been working with the cataloging committee on an issue that Jacob's going to be talking about in a few minutes, and we helped him out talking about the GMD, which I'll let him go into because he'll explain it better. So, and so that's basically what we've been working on. Like I said, COVID has taken up a lot of our discussion time. But I think, we talk about quarantining. We, looked at when everything all shut down all of a sudden and how to handle everybody's crazy due dates and not really knowing when we were going to open. So we came up with the process to have system staff just kind of globally change everybody's due date. And I think that worked really well. And I think we were all flying by the seat of our pants on something new that nobody knew how stuff was going to work. And I think as a system, we've done really well, and it's definitely been a learning experience. So hopefully it'll be done soon. So that's basically all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions. If anybody has anything in the chat or they'd like to ask some questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So. I'm going to head out. So bye.
Thanks, Esther.
Thanks.
Okay, now I'd like to introduce the Bibliographic and Cataloging Standards Committee Chair, Jacob Potty, and he will give his report.
Okay. You can hear me, but you can't see me. So. Ooh. Okay. So I am, as they said, I'm Jacob Potty. I'm the chair of the Bibliographic and Cataloging Standards Committee. I'm from the Rochester Public Library. The committee is made up of, I think at this time, we're all catalogers, though we could potentially at some point have a barcoder. So we deal with anything that has to do with cataloging or barcoding, creating policies, training, guidelines or requirements and that sort of thing. We just started because it got to the point where we were meeting every other month, but it kind of, we've been a consortium for, I don't even remember how many years, 7 years, and kind of gotten to the point where we really have done a lot. And at this point it's fine tuning most, or editing or changing existing policies because something comes up. So we went to meeting quarterly instead of every other month. So we now meet in January, April, July, and October. We just started that this year. So we will be having a meeting coming up in January. It's always the third Friday of the month at 10 o'clock via Zoom. And then if anything else came up, we could always have a special meeting. But anyway, so this past year, as I said, we've pretty much just been fine tuning policies, something's come up or there's been a problem with something, so we've changed them. And those, if as long as it doesn't change the meaning of the policy, those pretty much it's a committee decision and it's done. And Edie will send it out to everybody and it's good. So I guess the big thing that before I get to the policies that we have up for a vote, the big thing we did was the GMD discussion. It was, well, first, the GMD is that general mass descriptor. Gosh, I can't even remember what it stands for. It's but anyway, it's like after like
General
the type
material designation.
I yes, thank you. Gosh, it's a headache. I can't even remember what it stands for. But anyway, it's like after the title of, say, like a DVD, it says video recording, or after a large print book's text large print in brackets. That's what that is. It is a holdover from AACR, the Anglo-American Cataloging Rules, which is the old rules of cataloging that we used to use until RDA, Resource Description and Access, the current one that we use, came into play about 7 years ago, and we've been officially 100% cataloging in AACR, in RDA for about 2 or 3 years. I'll share everything brought in from OCLC has to be RDA. But it's a holdover because a lot of people like it because it's easier to pick out, especially with large print books. Not so much with the sound recordings and video recordings, because the type of material designation is more specific. Like it'll tell you if it's a Blu-ray DVD combo, DVD, etc. But we had to because that is something that is not in RDA. There are other fields in the bibliographic record that take the place of that. So we talked to circulation committee because obviously it does involve circulation, and bib standards and circulation were of the opinion that we send out a survey. And so we did, and we've been through this before. So Edie had created like a very good explanation of what this is, how it would show up in a search result, what would happen if we didn't have it, how would it look in the search result, etc. And the results of the survey were overwhelmingly keep it, because everybody, especially with the large print books. A lot of people were kind of like, I guess we could get rid of it for the video recordings and sound recordings, but people absolutely wanted it for the large print books. So we took that back. I talked to Circuit Committee about it, and we took it back to bib standards, and we decided that while we completely understand that a lot of people love this and it helps in searching, it is kind of a relic and we can't keep it forever. So we decided that as a committee, we're going to kind of revisit it the issue in a year and see how things are in a year. And in the meantime, it'll be different ways to search where you don't need the GMD will be added into training, and resources will be given to show just that you don't necessarily need this. And there were issues to where if you did a bib record search, it was fine. You could tell like you didn't need that GMD, but if you did an item record search, which most times most people don't do an item record specific search unless you're searching for your own library's items. But if you did, and all these items were popping up and somebody didn't specify like their item was large print in the item record, either in the collection or the material type or the call number, you couldn't tell. but that was an issue. But we're going to revisit it in a year. For now, the GMD is staying put. That was kind of our biggest discussion. And then, so the policies we have, there's nothing really controversial or major. And actually, a lot of this is stuff we've already been doing, but it's just kind of codifying it in policy format. The first I have is the cataloging self-published items. This actually is was taught in a catalogers training session. I mean, Joanne Bauer created this several years ago. It's kind of just been like the go-to for how to do self-published items, especially when you don't have like a clearly named publisher. CreateSpace is not a publisher, it's a manufacturer. And we're just kind of putting it in policy. So, I mean, we've all should have been doing this all along. It's just kind of making it policy. Anyway, then the other one is the use of ISBD punctuation. This is the PCC, which is the Program for Cooperative Cataloging, which is through the Library of Congress, had decided to make it optional to omit ISBD punctuation, which displays really terribly in Polaris. Like, you could have a publisher, like where the publication is, and it will say like, it's just, there's nothing separating anything. It'll be New York Random House 2020. It's like all big one, like it looks like a sentence. It just looks awful. However, so we pretty much created a policy that says you have to keep the ISBD punctuation. The good thing for all the catalogers out there is I do a ton of copy cataloging, bringing in records from OCLC. And I think I've maybe seen 1 or 2 records that do not have the ISBD punctuation in it. Nobody's actually omitting it. So we have it in we're going to have it in, well, assuming you approve it, in writing, but most of you, it will not affect you. And then the last thing we have up for vote is the recording, publication, and copyright dates in Polaris records for books. We're creating policy for how to do dates in various formats. The video recordings and sound recordings are out for member comment right now. So those will be at the next meeting. And again, this is just pretty standard. It's based on what we've been doing all along, pretty much. So it's just putting in an policy so everybody does it. The purpose of all of these is just for consistency across the consortium. These 3 policies that I just said, if you're a barcoding library, you don't have to worry about voting for them. They don't apply to you. These are just for cataloging libraries. So I'm putting my email in the chat. If you have any issues that you'd like our committee to discuss, you can send me an email. I'm working from home 3 days a week, so please send me an email. Don't try calling Rochester Library because I may not be there. But other than that, if anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Jacob. I don't have a question. I do just have a comment that the proposed changes are going to be both on the SHARE website under governance and membership meetings, as well as on today's event through L2. So there are full details on some of those proposed changes for both cataloging and from the SHARE Executive Council. So I'm adding links right there as well.
Okay, if nobody else has any questions or comments, thank you, Jacob. Next, we'll move on to E-Resources Committee. Ryan Johnson at O'Fallon is the chair and will give that report.
Hi, everybody. As Jenna mentioned, I'm Ryan Johnson, chair of the E-Resources Committee and the director of the O'Fallon Public Library. First off, I'd like to thank the other members who have volunteered their time and expertise to this committee. We have Lauren Irwin of Hainer, Janet McAllister of Rochester, Kyla Waltermeyer of Mississippi Valley, Alyssa Hinkle of Decatur, Sarah Hill of Lakeland College, and Vice Chair Jenna Dower of Smithton. Most recently, as Jenna stated earlier, the committee has been reviewing the various functions and limitations of mobile apps available to our consortium. We have participated in demos with 2 vendors, Solus and Capira. We are still very early in this process, and the committee is being mindful of the varying needs presented by our diverse members. I personally was skeptical of the need for a mobile app, but after learning more about the features, customization options, and so on, my opinions have changed. If, as libraries, we want to stay current, relevant, and attractive to our communities, we need to find ways to meet them more where they are. For a lot of users, as Troy spoke of earlier, a mobile app accomplishes just that. I really don't have any further details about cost, a timeline, or implementation yet. Just know that this is something this committee is looking at, and we will eventually make a recommendation based upon our review, along with input from system staff. Pivoting now to Cloud Library, we are currently spending 15% of that budget on the pay-per-use or PPU program. 60% of that goes to the general collection, and then the other 25% of the budget goes to covering platform fees. The PPU model continues to be popular. We had around 1,300 individual items downloaded last month, which is right on track with this time last year. The figure remains relatively constant month to month because of our budget allotment per month. So even with PPU remaining flat, the Cloud Library as a whole has seen an increase of 19.6% compared to November of last year. And no doubt due to increased demand on e-resources during COVID, as Cassandra previously mentioned. And I'm sure the recent grant we received will help increase those numbers even further. And I'd like to formally thank Cassandra and the rest of the staff for working so hard on that grant process. Other notes concerning Cloud Library, we increased the maximum holds per account to 6 from 5. We also turned on reading history for patrons. So that is an auto-on feature that the patron has access to via the app or the browser. The library can't see that data unless the patron has also activated reading history within Polaris, and then Polaris will track both traditional checkouts as well as Cloud Library checkouts. And then lastly, the purchase of RB Digital by Overdrive. I know that Leslie and Cassandra are both working on that and monitoring that transition to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible for our users. And that's all I have to report. Thank you for your time and attention today, and I'm happy to attempt an answer to any questions you may have.
It looks like Jill has a question for Leslie Zabadou. What hurdles do you see outside of the additional users to the Cloud Library if non-residents are given access to this database for free? Is there something in our contract that would prohibit this? And I don't know that Jill, I don't know that Leslie may or may not have the answer to that question. So I am going to research that, because generally Cloud Library, what they say is we determine who we allow access to, but it is based on population data. So residency and population data might fluctuate, but being a group as a consortium, I don't know how that impacts that. So I will certainly research that and get back to you as well as the rest of the consortium. Unless Leslie, if you're still here, if you happen to just know. Jamie Ratchford asks, has anyone else had patrons call to say that they were able to suddenly gain access to the Libby app? You do not buy it, but we've had 3 patrons say that they used it. Could this have to do with the RB Digital purchase? It should not. We did have a problem with Digital Library of Illinois offering access through Polaris because of some grandfathered issues with schools. And so they were authenticating through our database without using the correct fields. And so we had thought that that had been resolved. So Jamie, if you are experiencing that, can you maybe send me the information of those patrons? And if they went through the Libby app, what library they selected, that would be very helpful. Does anybody else have any questions? Say they selected Morrison Talbot Library, and yes, I will. I would be interested to see if it was through the Digital Library of Illinois, if somehow it got added there. I can't imagine how they selected you guys directly. So I will research that, Jamie, and I will get back to you. Okay. Anybody else have any questions before we move on?
Okay, if nobody has any questions, we'll move on to the Finance and Policy Committee report. Miranda Shake from Lakeview College of Nursing Library is the chair of that committee and will give the report. And before I turn it over to her, I want to let you guys know that if you do have questions, pop them in the chat and then we'll get to them when we get a moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenna. I just wanted to say I am newly chaired, so I am going to probably read from my email that Cassandra graciously sent me. We do have 7 members on this committee. The original 4 are Jill Pfeiffer, myself, Esther Curry, and Diane Yeoman. And then a few years back, we were able to add Amy Byers, Janet Clare, and Anita Driver. We meet on the second Thursday of every other month at 10 a.m. We'll meet again in January, and so on and so on. So this year, let's see here, we did discuss an approved fee increase, and that went through. Thank you for voting for that if you voted. We did change the governance to allow committees to make minor changes and established a tiered voting system, which we're actually going to use today, I hope, to vote for 1 item and then 3 items for cataloging. So only the cataloging libraries need to vote for that. So be on a watch for that email. We've also talked a lot about the Share mobile app, so I won't go over that again because we've all covered that quite a bit today, and that's great. I can't wait for that to be here. And then Rhonda has given us many, many financial updates over the year. We did have an audit, and the audit was issued as unmodified or clean for 2020, so that's fabulous. At the end of 2020, our operating activity revenue was over expenditures $123,502, or 9.23% of our $1,338,000 budgeted revenue. This was mainly because of a few staff vacancies and canceled travel. So that was fabulous and a bit unexpected. As of October 31st, 2020, IHLS has billed 96.9% of share fees, and 95% of those accounts have been collected. So that's great news. Those percentages were even higher than the previous fiscal year. And then, Cassandra, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that we're just in great financial shape, and I think that we're looking towards the future. We had always been on such narrow margins that with the change to the fee structure, that's going to help us just have a really solid financial footing in the future.
Okay, unless there's any questions, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Miranda. Do we have any questions? I don't see any right now. So I got happy and I got excited, I guess, about the Share Executive Council report, and I kind of already gave it. So I just want to reiterate, be nice to each other. We are going to have the recommended changes for the medium and large library sizes, and we're all excited about the app. I think we'll make a good decision, and we're in the early stages of this, as Ryan mentioned, but it is good that we're talking about it and meeting. And in the tech world, a couple months could mean a lot of new advances for the app. So that's exciting. Does anybody have questions about anything that I've said or for any other committee members? If not, I will hand it over to Cassandra to talk about any questions that handle that or talk about the other news section.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to remind everyone that we are going to start and open our vote on those 4 proposed items. We will be doing that starting next Wednesday. I do encourage everyone, all of our cataloging libraries, it's please very important for you to vote on those 3 items. And then there's the additional item that will link to that survey for the item up for all members. Again, that is for the change in the representative sizes so that we can make those governmental changes for the structure of share. And so it is always appreciated when you vote. I think that for all members, that is going to be one question, yes or no. So it should take less than a minute to just input your vote. So please do take the time to do that, because we do have to have a quorum of our members in order for any changes to go through. And so it's going to be super close to Christmas. We don't want to have to start calling people to make those changes. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to the committee members, and those proposed changes will also be available on today's membership meeting. The files have been attached there. They're also on our Share webpage under governance. You'll see a section for membership meetings, and so they are there as well. And so I encourage everybody to look into those. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out. So I think that does it, unless anybody has any additional questions. Okay, Jenna, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you'd like to say the magic words to close us out for today.
Okay, I guess I should bring up, does anybody have any public comments to make?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We could bring that up too. Do we have any announcements? Not that I know of. We're all looking forward to 2021, and I hope things are better. I hope we're a little bit less stressed. But if nobody has any additional things to add, I don't see anything in the chat. It is 4 p.m. on the dot, and if there's no further business, we'll adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.